Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello and welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari and I am here with Leen Kawas today. Thank you for joining us, Leen.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you because you have a super impressive bio, and I was actually just having a conversation with someone last night about how there's just not enough women out there as inventors and who are doing really cool stuff like this. So I'm excited to share with our audience your bio. So I'm going to introduce Leen. Leen is a human mother, wife to a wonderful husband, entrepreneur, inventor, visionary, and most recently, an inventor. She is the founder and executive managing general partner of Propel Partners. Lena is the co-founder of Athira, served as its CEO from 2014 through 2021, and a co-inventor of its lead drug candidate and several of the innovative drug candidates in Athira's pipeline. She started Athira with one person and within 6 years raised $400 million, taking the company through its public offering. According to Business Insider and GeekWire, Leen was one of only 22 female founders and CEOs to lead their company to an IPO. As of February 2021, she is the first woman to guide a company through an IPO in Washington State in over 20 years. And at the time of Athira's IPO in September of 2020. So, wow, how impressive is that? I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
So let's get started with what led you down the path of biosciences?
Multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key things that helped me work in an area that I'm passionate about are two things: my mother,
yes,
and the US of A.
Yay! Good.
So the one thing is, I remember when I was 7, my grandmother passed away from cancer.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And I was writing my dad was dropping off us to school, and this is the first experience of death that I was aware of, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why did she die? And he's like, well, she had cancer, and it's a tough indication. I was like, why didn't the doctor fix her? And he's like, there's no treatments for cancer. There's no cures. And that was in 1993. And I was like, or 1992. And I was like, I'm going to grow up and invent a drug for cancer. I didn't know what cancer was,
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, go for it. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side of it, also, my mom passed away at a very, very young age, also from a medical condition, CNS neurodegenerative indication. And I like two things. I like numbers, finance, and accounting, and I liked chemistry. And she's like, you should go to pharmacy. She helped me. She brought a lot of people to talk to, at a young age that are in the chemistry and in the finance and in pharmacy. Like, I remember bringing people over to our house. And, it's stuck in my mind that I wanted to go into the pharmaceutical industry. And I got my pharmacy degree. Mm-hmm. And then being a pharmacist was not, exactly it, if that makes sense, Angela.
Yes.
And I decided to come to the US, finish my, continue my education, get a PhD. I thought academia was the thing that I could have a big impact. But then I got exposed to entrepreneurship, which is a very unique culture. Like, I think that's why the US is special, because we promote innovation, we promote talent. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially around equity and diversity. but I was exposed to this. I did not know what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
And it was the best decision I made when I was sitting in my PhD advisor's office when he said, "Do you want to co-found Athira with me and like stay?" I had a job lined up, this the secure job, the Excel
Yeah.
sheet job.
Right.
I said, you know what? Yeah, I guess I'll try it. And that was, I thought I was going to take a break, gap year, because I've been working since I was 16. I didn't take any breaks.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what starting a company. And that year, I worked so hard. I've never worked like, entrepreneurs, there's a passion, there's a vision. And I was a single person.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I read a legal document, it took me 5 hours. And now it's like, you know how it goes.
I do.
So it's, I love that I had the opportunity to move here to the US and be in a position that that I could have an impact on human
Absolutely.
health, on, in my new position in Propel Biopartners, also diversity in management, diversity in innovation. I'm lucky to have
Yeah.
this.
Well, we're
I
lucky
work
to
hard.
have you.
It's not only luck, it's also working hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 And where did you move from? Where
I
are you
moved
from?
from Amman, Jordan.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for all the contributions that you're making. I'm sure your mother and your grandmother would be so proud of you for what you're accomplishing on behalf of women, especially. So, we were just talking about this right before the show, and you said you have a daughter and you're passionate about, promoting women in entrepreneurship, in leadership, in biosciences. And, we were talking about how my mother, I watched her get passed up for promotion after promotion after promotion in the corporate world, and she'd have to train the male, superior that was promoted ahead of her in the job that she was, more qualified than they were to do. And so for you to take this on and to be an inventor and to be in biosciences, I think is just setting the right tone for women and your daughter especially. So I'm sure they'd be so proud of you.
Thank you.
So go ahead, please.
No, and to your point, I was interviewed for a Forbes article. One of the contributor asked about this specific point about life sciences. Like, why don't we have a lot of women in life sciences, but very few women are in executive and management positions.
Oh gosh, yes.
Although there's a lot of research showing when you have women on the helm or part of the executive team, returns are higher, cultures are more inclusive, and innovation has a different, unique flavor, if that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And one of the things is this, what you exactly said, is women don't get promoted as much.
Right.
And it's easier, right? Because if it's a man that's promoting another person, they relate with the experience of the male, right? Not the
Right.
woman. So it's easier for them to make that promotion. And one of the main things that I highlight to any young woman who is starting her career, find mentors, but most importantly, find advocates who
Yes.
will advocate for you to grow professionally and personally. And it doesn't have, we don't have as many women in leadership positions, but find someone that will advocate for you and will say, Christine, Angela, Leen is going to be the most valuable person that we have to put in this leadership position because of these aspects. And own it, promote yourself, talk about the other thing that women don't do about very well, which I love what you're doing, Angela, because you're promoting that, is talk about yourself and own it. If you're doing something, we don't always have to say, oh, it's 200 other people that participated in the work. It's typically, a lot of the time, there's one person that is driving it.
Right.
So I really appreciate what you are doing. And one of the things that resonated with me is, from some of the work that you're doing, is clearly telling other women to own it.
Own your power. Yes. Well, because what I have found is, And I actually had this conversation, like I was saying last night. I was talking to somebody who is very successful in his career, works for a great company, been there a long time. And the question, when he's talking about growth and, expansion and all of these things. And I said, so let me ask you a question. I said, with this huge company that you work for, a multinational company, how many women are in the executive team? He's like, well, none on the C level and none on the VP level, but we have directors. And I'm like, so middle management, basically. So why? And then none on the board of directors. And it's so sad to me that the ceiling for women is middle management. It should not be that way. A company who really understands what growth, diversity, and inclusion means to their business and how it can really push that business forward, and the impact that it has on the culture and the impact that it has for shareholders, because women drive revenue. We all know that. Why are we stopping at middle management? Why are we okay with it? And I think a lot of it is that we give our power away. We don't sell ourselves into those roles. We allow people to tell us where we belong, and that's not okay. That's what we have to stop. So I'm, just in love with this feat that you accomplished of taking a company and raising $400 million and going into an IPO, because less than 2.7, or I think it's 2.7% is the highest it's ever been, women run companies get venture capital, which is crazy. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you raised that money, what that meant, and how you went about it, and then how investors can make a bigger impact in investing in women-owned companies.
Yeah, I mean, in 2014, it was one person, Angela. It was me.
Mm-hmm.
I took a technology from Joe Harding's lab. He was my PhD advisor. And I didn't understand what entrepreneurship is fully to the full. Now I love it. Now I breathe it. It's in my DNA, but I didn't know.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Basically, it's not easy. I remember the first time, and this came from another woman, when I, launched the company in Seattle. A few people said, Seattle is a city that does not invest in women.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
Okay.
what? No way. I didn't even register. I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
no, I don't believe this. People invest in talent, people invest in innovation.
Right.
And then I was, I remember this meeting also. There was three investors. Okay. One of them, after I think I did an impressive presentation,
Sure.
And then towards the end, one of the three investors started bragging about another company he invested in. And I know that company, and the CEO is similar age. Everything is very similar, background, everything, except he was a man. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And then he kept bragging about the company. And he said, the only concern about Athira is her openly. And I was like, I would love more feedback. Explain to me. He's like, you're young and you don't have experience.
Oh my goodness.
And in my head, I was like, you just finished bragging about a person that is exactly me, but has the Y chromosome.
Right.
And I was like, okay, that sounds, I cannot change that. But what happened is I had two advocates with me in the meeting. That's what I'm saying. And they were people who he could relate to.
Uh-huh.
And they said, one of them was a serial executive CEO. He's like, she is a better CEO than me. And I have over 20 years experience of being a CEO. Now, he didn't end up investing, but that's his. I never took it personally. That's the other thing. It's his own bias. It's not me. But the other two, wrote my first million. First million. I had other investors come in earlier. And I remember taking that check and going taking a picture. It's insane, right?
That's awesome. Yes.
But I experienced that throughout. And for me, it was like, well, it's sometimes I am able to change it. Sometimes
Yes.
I remember one of my dear friends right now who told me, you're the first woman I invested in. And because of you, now I have a number of women-led companies.
Yeah.
If I took some of the things he said at the beginning personally, I
Mm-hmm.
would have never been successful. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I gave opportunities for other women that he invented. And he said, they are the companies that are doing very well in my portfolio.
Yeah.
Are the women-led companies. But also, like, from the other side of things is, I think it's also partially my background, my mindset, the way that I grew up. We did things differently at Athira.
Yeah.
I built a very innovative team, the core team. I'm so proud of that team and what we were able to achieve together to do things differently around drug development, patient centricity, which is something I
Yes.
would love to talk about, like
Yeah, for
clinical
sure.
trial recruitment, also representation of clinical trials. We've built a team that did not think about barriers. We've only thought about solutions and how can we do things better, different, with a mindset that we are serving the key stakeholders, which are the patients.
Well,
And
thank
if
you for
we
saying the key stakeholder is the patient and not the shareholder. Thank you for that, because I think that is part of what makes women in business better. I
And
think
you
that's
know why? Because I always explain, don't track the stock price.
yes.
Track the success and satisfaction of your customers, and in life science, it's patients.
Yes, it's the better
Because then
foundation.
it's gonna drive value long term. Don't have the short-sightedness of like, oh my God, the price today is up 5% down. You are
Yes.
building therapies, you are changing people's lives. And once you
Yes.
achieve that, the financial value is going to follow.
Oh
When
my
you're so
gosh.
short-sighted, when you have the short-sightedness of like,
Mhm.
I need to create an inflection point, or then it's like, no, do the right decision for the product, for the patients, for the caregivers, for people. Financial gain will follow.
That's
Uh,
exactly right. When you're following your passion and you're doing good in the world, it will come. If you're focused on the share price, you're not building a foundation. You're
you're not building
building
a
a
company.
temporary success that's going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart. And so, and I think this is why, as a woman-led company, you were able to raise 400 million and take it to an IPO. With this idea, you were one person raising money. That's incredible, incredible.
One,
And so,
one person, and sometimes I had the like, I lived, you moved to Seattle, and New York
yes,
City. I rented an apartment and rented a cubicle. And then someday, like some months, I'm like, oh my God, do I pay for the cubicle or pay for the apartment? Like I
yeah,
have nothing.
yeah,
Okay.
I know.
Um,
Oh,
but it's amazing, right?
oh,
Resourcefulness, resilience. I remember when GeekWire sent me a note right before going public, is like, Leen, you're the first woman to take a company public in 20 years. A lot of
wow.
people sent me congratulations. I cried.
Yeah.
I cried because it was crazy for me that at this day and age, this is the reality that we're living in, especially that I have a daughter. Uh,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, and so I feel the same way. Like I know I heard something about, X amount of companies now have a woman on the board of directors. Isn't that amazing? Of all the Fortune 500 companies, we're now up to like 20 of them or something ridiculous. And I'm like, is that a win? Is that really a win? Why isn't it 500 out of 500? Why isn't, I mean, why are we considering these little incremental gains a win? But you're right. I am so with you on that, crying because you're like, but why is that so? And while it's bittersweet, you're celebrating at the same time, you're sad for the other women who, come on, let's get out here and do this.
yeah, and it's not easy. I don't want to like trivialize. It was
No.
so hard, and
Yes.
it's still harder. But I feel much more confident with everything that I went through, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's like
Yes.
it's all like, for me, that the mindset that I think women should have, if this is what they want to pursue, it's most of the time not your baggage, not about you. Know what you want to do and go do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship. It doesn't have to be executive. It doesn't, but on what you want to do, because everything we do, you know, one of the really important aspects of what we do is we build societies, right? Uh, and I want my daughter to be comfortable, confident in her choices and
Yes.
do it. Uh, and most of the time, it's not your baggage. If someone has bias against women,
Yeah.
try to help them to get rid of the back. Have an open mind. It's not
Mhm.
about you. It's the baggage and the bias that they come with. And if
Right.
you're able to help people to get rid of some of the, it's a win. Like
Mhm.
Jack, my friend, like for him to tell me you're the first woman I invest, that was like, this was not a sad moment for me because I enabled a change in a man and he
Yes.
counted the other companies. So try to be part of the change. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And find the right people around you. You're not going to be always successful in finding the right people around you,
Yeah.
but surround yourself with the right people and propel yourself forward and others with you.
I love it. Gosh, that's so great. So, you were talking about being a mother and kind of what that means in terms of like your daughter and exhibiting the right things for her. So how has being a mother changed you as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as a leader?
That was one of the being a mother was one of the most critical transformations that I
Really?
had as a leader. Absolutely.
Wow.
Uh, I had two children, and in the both pregnancies, I had tough periods. It's
Uh-huh.
because like there's the pregnant woman lens, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
uh, I had someone in one of the board meetings, which I was like 2 weeks away from having a child. It's like, what
Wow.
if you die? What if you die? Do we have a transition plan? I'm like, are
Oh
you
my
kidding me?
gosh.
Of course, the scientist in me is like went and did research and is like, do you know that there's higher probability that you will die driving your car than me dying having a baby?
Thank
So
you.
should
Yes.
you stop driving a car? Like just
Right.
help. Uh, but that was me like when I was like getting worked out a lot. And now I don't like, yeah, sure. I
Yeah,
might
yeah.
die, but it's all good.
Yeah, right. Well,
uh,
I
but
think
that
that's
that
fascinating.
but that just to tell you about my husband, okay?
Uh-huh.
He's the person that I love the most, but I
Uh-huh.
also the one who annoys me the most because he has these like uh has these like moments when says super wise things that's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, that's great, but you're annoying. Uh, I remember when I was pregnant with Noor, my first child, who was one of the biggest inspiration for me. He said, "Why are you nervous that you're pregnant?" I'm like, "Well, there's expectation. People think that I'm gonna lose my focus." And he's like, "What are you talking about? We're only different because you're carrying the baby right now. But once you have the baby, we are equal. We are both parents."
That's true. Yes, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I
Good
was
for
like,
him.
oh my God, like this guy's, how did I, how, he's the best decision in my life that I decided to
Mm.
marry him.
Mm-hmm.
But, as soon as I had my first child, there's something that changed in me.
Mm-hmm.
That was the impact on me, if that makes
Right.
sense. Other women might not experience the same thing. And if they don't want to be mothers, that is absolutely right. Because we experience different pressures from the
Right.
society versus professional. Men is like, it's the same type of expectation,
Oh yeah.
career.
Doesn't really change.
For
Yeah.
society, we need to be mothers, we need to be the perfect mothers, we need to,
Mm-hmm.
and then career, you need to be like career. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
same. But it's the same. What happened to me is I became a better leader,
Mm-hmm.
more empathetic. I
Yeah.
learned at that before having a baby, you're so flexible. I learned how to manage time better, how to prioritize goals, how to
Mm-hmm.
become more effective and efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And I also get, when you have a baby, there is like you're creating life. There's a moment, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like
Right.
women are so being a woman is a strength because you have this, like, you go through this experience that is like nothing, okay, that you've experienced. Like, that gives you, for me, it gave me a lot of strength. Okay, I don't want
Yes.
to say everyone should have strength because every experience is unique. It gave me this strength. I was like, if I can create life, I can do anything. Right.
Right. It's true. Sometimes I would look at my baby and I would say, I made that. How did that happen?
And like the pain that we go through and the resilience, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
like my first baby, I had like my labor was over 36 hours.
Wow.
My husband was sleeping on the couch, and I was like, when I look back, and when I had my baby, I'm like, my mom had 4 children with no epidurals.
Oh,
That's another thing, is like there's an appreciation, is like, oh my God, she's a superhero,
yeah.
right?
No.
You're a superhero. We're superheroes, right?
We are superheroes. I agree.
And then try negotiating with a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Negotiation skills, communication skills
Mhm.
improve because
Mhm.
you need to, when you're working with your children, you need to change your level, right? Whether it's, sometimes they beat you, sometimes so you need to
Mhm.
have the ability to go to a certain level, down or up, which is the same thing in any organization. As a leader, you need to
Absolutely.
understand the details. You need to appreciate every person the function of every person in your organization, and understand it at different levels. So for me, my children helped me grow as a leader. It was one of the most transformational, become a more empathetic, better communicator. For me, I want to highlight, it's only me. Other women are different. Other people
Mhm.
are different. I felt I became a more complete person.
Yes, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
But again, it's for me. Other women might not, it
Mhm.
might be the most foreign thing for them, and they
Yeah.
find their passion in different ways. And that's also another success, amazing model, if that makes sense. So uh, people freak out about being woman. I remember one, it's a sad thing, another, like a colleague, that we were in the airport. He is much older, and we were in the process of hiring someone. One of our employees was pregnant, and she went out only for 1 month. Okay, like 1 month.
Yeah.
Like, I freaked out when I saw her. I was like, "Are you
Sure.
freaking crazy? Like, don't do what I do. Like, there's
Right.
no expectation." She's like, "No, no, I'm ready."
Mhm.
So had no impact. And then the comment that he made, that he said, like, basically, let's make sure that if we're gonna hire a woman, that she is not in the birth, like,
Oh my
stage.
gosh. Yeah.
And I was like, that's not
Oh,
okay. That is not okay at all for
right.
you to even think about it. Okay. I was
Uh-huh.
like his boss, so I could like say that. We didn't have like, thankfully, no HR was around, but I was like, you cannot say that. I should have fired
No.
him on the spot, but you know, you learn and grow.
Yeah.
Uh, but having children can be empowering for some people. For me, it was super empowering, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's the best thing for
Yeah,
me.
it really is. Well, and it forces balance, right? So it does. It forces balance on you, and you start to prioritize differently. Time management is different. Everything is different. But I agree with you. It changed me for the better, and I've had multiple, interactions with male colleagues who say they don't hire women who are in the childbearing age because, or the expectation when I say, how come there's no women on the executive level, on the board level? Well, women usually stop, they usually reach middle management because of children. And I'm like, what about children? What about motherhood? Like, tell me where we have to stop progressing in our career because we've decided to have children. Like, I'm not seeing the
Yeah.
correlation at all. And so, I am a mother. I can speak to that. And yes, I know every mother is different, just like you had mentioned. And so I understand that part of it, but it doesn't make you less of a capable human. It
Yeah.
makes you more capable.
On the other extreme, my colleague Jim Harding, he's a father, amazing father,
Mm-hmm.
amazing colleague, and I wrote a blog about working mother, and he's like, the last part also applies for men. I was like, can you explain to me more? He's like, when we had our first child, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be a full-time parent. but
Yeah.
it was an issue for everyone. But
Mm,
it was what I wanted, but I couldn't.
yeah.
So I'm like, now I'm passionate about if you're a human being and you
Hmm.
decide you want to be a parent. Of course, I'm more passionate because I'm a mother. Like I can.
Yeah.
And if you want to go outside of the societal norms, it's a whole new world. There's
Yes.
technology that is helping us in so many. Yes, it may be like 1,000 years ago, they needed to split functions based on, but now we have technology, we have everything. There's these societal like ancient norms does not apply
Hmm.
anymore.
No, no.
Mhm.
And we're not having to, stick around our children to save them from wild animals while the men are out hunting and
Right.
gathering. Like this is 2022. Can we please move on from
Yes,
these ridiculous, standards? So, but
exactly.
yes, I agree. So tell me a little bit more about, when you start going into biosciences and tell me about the patient centric methodology that you're using and what you're doing.
Yeah. So another thing, when I was working in Athira, we the company now and is working on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Oh,
I really have a big passion for
yes.
neurodegenerative indications, and I noticed that there's a lot of industry standards. Sometimes they're good, but a lot of the times they're again ancient, right?
Okay.
And a lot of time, have you thought about even from the discovery stages, like, oh, we're so far away from patients. Like, no, you have to think about the patients very
Yeah.
early on and ask them
Yeah.
about like what is really important for you. Because if you're developing a drug for a symptom or a issue that is part of the disease but doesn't bother the patients or the not the most or the biggest need, it's not as impactful, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I like interactions with the FDA, interactions with the clinical sites, like we've done something very different. My partner actually at Propel by partner Shwekwa, we worked together for over 6 years, and me and her, we never agree on anything, which brings,
Uh-huh.
unique type of innovation. It's the mutual respect is very important. And what we've done differently is we actually went to sites. We asked sites, can you bring patients in? Because we want to ask them about the clinical trial experience. This is never
Interesting.
like, they was like, oh, I've
Yeah.
never heard a drug developer that cares about clinical trials experience about patients.
Yeah.
And really, we asked them about how is your typical experience? What are the things that really create anxiety? What are the things that you enjoy in clinical trials? Um, what makes you want to be part of clinical development? Because without patients, you cannot develop drugs.
Yeah. Right.
And without, like we need their input. And because and also if you design clinical trials that has the patient's voice in them,
Mm.
then patients' retention, which means for patients to continue the whole trial, will increase, which is a problem in our industry.
Is it? Okay.
Uh, yeah, it is like because it's you go into these clinical trials that are highly scientific, like there's no practical aspect of it. One
Right.
thing that I still remember, caregiver, a wife of a patient that had Alzheimer's, she said something very simple. She said, I come to a clinical trials, we're stuck for 8 to 12 hours in the clinical sites, and I don't know what we're going to be doing throughout the day. Like, I don't know,
Wow.
like, when are we going to have lunch? When I'm going to have snack? Uh, you know, if he gets hungry and I can't leave him, it creates anxiety, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for
Simple
sure.
thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
we added meals in our like
Ah,
part of our clinical protocol is our meals. Simple. Like just listen
wow.
to them, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is one patient, which was she was amazing. He's like, it's a subcut, it's an injectable. Like I don't know if you're familiar with insulin. It's they take it
Mm-hmm.
home and they inject it. Um, one patient, which I was super impressed, is like, well, I worry that if it's an injectable, that other patients are not going to be able to administer it well. So what are you guys going to do to make sure that We created videos, we created brochures, we had calling, nurses that would call to support them. We did
Wow.
training. This is feedback from patients, not
Ugh.
from the physicians, not from our team. It's very important. And then third part, which hits into what we're talking about, Angela. I was in a conference 2 weeks ago focused on clinical trial summits, talking about clinical trial design. One of the topics that was raised is diversity in our clinical trials.
Yes.
It's funny,
Mm-hmm.
most of the study participants are typically men and mostly white men.
Really?
It's
Okay.
very interesting, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking, and that epiphany came while it was a table. A lot of the middle management were women, but a lot of the executives were
White
white men.
men. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I said, you know why we don't have as much diversity as we want in our clinical trials? Because the patients, they don't see themselves in the executives,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
If there's more women, it's not just the people that are in, it's exactly when they go search the company, who's on the website.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100% of the time. I know. Well, and
So
it's sad, right? Like we need to do better with that.
yeah, so having more female executives, having more diversity in your clinical trials. If people
Mm-hmm.
go and look up a company and it's a diversified management team, I bet you that you will have higher diversity in your clinical trials.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you have the patients in mind, the whole corporate structure, the whole corporate goal, the whole shareholder value will be achieved because of these organic aspects that will happen if we have diversity in the management team. And that's what we're doing on Propel, by the way. We are part of the
Yeah.
change. Now I'm an investor, as you mentioned earlier. So I'm investing with, do you hear the sound, the background,
Yeah,
Angela?
yeah. Hey, this is
that's
normal
that's
life.
part of
That's
what makes us
perfectly
human.
good.
Yeah. But that's it. I want to invest in diversified management that includes
Yes.
white men, women, different background, different experiences, because once you have that mix,
Yeah.
you will have innovation in a very different flavor and inclusive flavor.
Yes. Well, and I can tell you from experience that, it's innate in us that we have different values and qualities. It's not always taught, and I've spoken about this before, but I did a volunteer panel. Sorry, I just hit the microphone. I did a volunteer panel a while ago where I was serving on as a judge for high schoolers who were doing a competition, entrepreneur competition. And it's funny because I actually just did a second one recently. And what I found was when you have everybody looked the same on the team, whether it's all white men, all women, the same race, the same background, the answers were very standard. Like, the young men who were on the panel, they would always focus on, their solutions were operations, logistics, safety oriented. For women, it was branding, engagement, employee satisfaction. That was their focus. For different minority races, it was more community involvement, mentoring. So they all had different values that they brought to the table. All of these were really, really good, well thought out, extremely thoughtful answers. However, the best teams, the winning teams, had diversity within their team because it allowed them to have those different perspectives in one solution. So now you have, community involvement and mentorship and logistics and operations and branding and engagement. All of that together is what makes a winning team. Not, all of those are great segments, but they're not all encompassing. They're not holistic. They don't answer a solution fully, or they don't have a solution fully. Whereas the diversity that you bring in, the inclusion and the diversity, that's where you get those really well thought out, great plans for action.
Completely agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely agree. And that's like another study. We're now in the process of applying to schools for our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
We recently moved to LA, so that's a very different experience applying to school. And
Right.
one of the schools that we were talking to, this is what you said is what resonated with me, is that they are intentional in creating projects with diversified teams,
Yes.
because the solutions and the outcome of the project is inclusive, more like they use more. Shout out for Mike. I'm not going to say the name of the school, so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't. But Mike, he said, it creates more palatable solution and message to a broader audience.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, exactly what you said, and I love it that now there are schools who are aware and intentional, because it starts from
Mm-hmm.
there,
It
right?
really does. Yeah. Well, and it starts with people like you who are out there leading the way in biosciences where there's not very many women, and getting to that executive level and being, the first, hopefully of many who have taken their company to an IPO. Like it's extraordinary, but it takes women like you who are out there doing it and fighting those battles, because the battles become easier once you've set the standard. Once you've said, look, this works, here's why it works, and you've shown that it works, then, like you were saying, you were part of the change with, the gentleman who invested in you, and now he's investing in other women. Like, it takes trailblazers. It takes women like you who are willing to fight the battle and then go out there and show the results of what you're doing.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And another point now, I also co-founded a venture firm, which there are very, very few women who start
yes.
business investment firms.
Yep.
Uh, it's even like fewer numbers than companies, which is really, interesting. And in the life science industry, it's even less.
Yes.
It's very
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just
Good for you.
yeah. The basically it's starting an investment firm in life sciences. There are very few women who have been in my position, right? Again, I have
Yes.
Richard Kane, who invested in my previous company, Athira, and immediately as I became available, he called me up within 30 minutes. He's like, I want to start a fund with you, because I spent time with him. He has 3 daughters who are also trailblazing
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and scientists, and it's amazing, and it takes people like Rick Kane, who's raising strong women, but
Mm.
also supporting strong women,
Yes.
if that makes
Yes.
sense. And what we in my position right now, I'm not just investing in women or minority, or I'm investing in diversity,
Yeah.
because this will bring the best innovation and the best returns. And there's studies. I'm not like saying from my mind, like there are studies that show that woman led companies, or companies that have executive presentation, there is higher returns to the shareholders. So
Absolutely.
it is like based on science. So
It
why
really
wouldn't I
is.
increase my chances of a higher return, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't this something that everyone wants when they're making an investment?
Well, and if I'm going to invest in a company on Wall Street, women-led companies on average show returns of 30% plus over their male
Exactly.
counterparts. So why aren't we doing that? Why aren't
Yes.
we advocating that more? Why aren't we championing this all the time? But
Right.
we need those advocates out there to support us. And sometimes it's men who advocate for women, and they'll listen. But women,
And
like you out there.
there are women, and another factor that there was a study, I think it's a Harvard Business Review,
Mm-hmm.
that shows that only 12% of decision makers in the overall investment community are women.
Wow.
And there was a big study that was conducted, I think it was in Australia or Canada, not in the US, but it's another country where there's significant entrepreneurship. And they did interviews for a large number of, they watched presentation of entrepreneurs of both women and men that are presenting to these VCs, and they found out that women get different questions than men.
Really?
Men get questions about gains,
Uh-huh.
women get questions about risks.
Oh, interesting.
And they also continued this study and showed that entrepreneurs that get questions about gain, I think they get 3 times more funding than entrepreneurs that get questions about losses or risks.
Wow.
So
That's
there's always
incredible.
all like bias in the investment in decision making, like, and that should
Mhm.
now that I'm in the investment, community, this is something I'm working towards. Like, we
Yeah.
need equitable process as we're evaluating technologies. You need good team, resilient entrepreneurs, innovation, and technologies that can change people's lives. And if you
Uh,
just look, and honestly, like as we go through our due diligence checklist, which is long, I'm finding that more women fit. Like, I don't want to, like, now I'm being like creating bias on the other side, but I think because now women have to show more to get
mhm.
funding, they're typically more prepared.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so because there is an entrant, like there's bias already in the process, I think women are preparing themselves for these type of fundraising in a very different perspective because of their experiences.
So do you find, and this is a study that I had read about, but I have found, or there was a study that showed women typically ask for less money than what they need, and from a bank and from an investor. So they will typically go in with the minimum amount that they need, whereas a man going in asking a bank or an investor for money will typically ask for more than what they need. And so there's a real imbalance of who is getting how much money, because women won't ask for as much because they want to be very careful and conservative, whereas men will be a little bit more, you know, kind of, big picture. I want all of this money. And so they'll typically walk away with more money invested in their companies as well.
I think you're right. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I What I found is budgets,
Mm-hmm.
financial projections, and cash runways are more thought through in women-led companies.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and but as part of being an investor with an entrepreneurial background, I give feedback on these things. That's part of what we do at Propel. It's really help them understand that there's risk. You need to build margins. I haven't thought
Mm-hmm.
about it in this lens, but I think, just going through quickly the large number of companies, I think there's some truth. And
Yeah.
and but based on I want to share with you, there's also external bias, I think, but
Mm.
it's an N of one. When I was in the process of planning to take Athira public, uh, there was a couple of groups, investors and bankers, that sent me examples of women-led companies for
Okay.
IPOs.
Hmm.
Uh, and you're right, there were smaller IPOs, smaller fundraising. It's like, yeah, but that's a very different company. I need way more money, and
Right.
I am not using you as a banker. Okay.
Yes.
And I ended up having JP Morgan, I had Goldman Sachs,
Wow.
Jeffrey, like the top, Jeffrey, Stifel. I decided on Goldman Sachs, Jeffries, and Stifel and JMP, because the bankers that I was working with, they had more diversity, first of all, in the groups, but also they
Yeah.
didn't have any type of, like, they said, how much do you need? Like, they were aligned with me. Um, and I remember one of the Goldman Sachs bankers who had like over 20 years experience in the life science industry. He said, your crossover round is the best round that I've seen. The type of investors in the round are the best that I've seen in my
Wow.
whole career. Of course,
Wow.
also, like because again, I was a woman, I experienced that we get asked a lot of questions, so we had like super preparedness.
Hmm.
I've always told the team that we need to it's maybe it's silly right now, but I told them we need to know about our space more than anyone else. I don't want
Yeah.
to be in a place where I'm being asked a question that I'm embarrassed that someone else knows more than. We're gonna do the research, we're gonna do the work.
Yep.
And we're gonna if groups go 2 feet down the ground, we're gonna go 100. And that's another thing. I don't know if it's women, but it was like me and I call them the core Athira team. We high standards, high quality, patients first. Then games. Then you raise the best crossover round, and you get Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan fighting to take you public.
Good. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love that. I love it. So there's like a million questions I have for you, which is crazy. I am just so proud of you. I'm so grateful for women like you in our world, because you're setting the standard, you're setting the example, and I'm just so incredibly thankful that you have put yourself out there in this way.
And I really appreciate what you're doing. I listen to your podcast. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to say something at the end is we are part of the change. I don't know if you have daughters. I have a daughter. She is my biggest inspiration. I want her to be the first person to do something, not the first woman.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Let's keep up the good work and own our success, own our challenges, and keep moving forward and change.
Well, and I 100% am with you. And I have a son, and, one of my proudest moments ever in my life was, last year he had to do a presentation on his favorite CEO. And, his dad also owns a company. Of course, there's all these incredible CEOs out there in the world. Elon Musk, was one of his top choices. We talk about him all the time, and the innovation. And, we're really big on innovation in our house. We talk about it all the time. We talk about business all the time. He started his first business at 13 years old. And but when he did his presentation for his business class last year, he did a presentation on his mom. So of all the CEOs in the world he could have chosen, he chose his mom. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's exactly it. Like, this is a very important point. We are the role models. There's way more like white men that are in executive. So it's easier for a young boy to see himself in executive positions, right? But the more people that we have, like you, like me, like others that I'm able to meet, amazing. There's a lot of amazing CEOs out there that, whether they're men or women, they have the same exact mindset as your son. They don't see gender, they see talent. And let's make it happen. I'm determined. This is my mission. This is one of my missions.
Me too. So I got to ask, who inspires you?
Oh, that's a long question. We need another podcast. There's a lot of people that inspires me. There's my daughter is one of the most brave people I know. We go out now that we are in Los Angeles. We can sit outside and have a meal outside. We were in Seattle, so it was raining most of the year. She sings.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's the confidence. One time I was working and she came. She's like, "Mama, I want you for something." I said, "Can you give me 5 minutes?" And it took more than 5 minutes. She's 4.5, just to put things in perspective. And I go to her, "Okay, now I'm ready." And she's like, "Mama, you were late, and I am disappointed." Like, good for you. Yes, advocate for yourself.
Yes, I love that.
And so she's one of my biggest inspiration. My mother was continues to be one of my biggest inspiration. I'm from Jordan, a Middle Eastern country. She had, in an era and a place where there's very, very few women that are in leadership position. She was there. She was the role model for me and my sisters, who also inspire me, both of them. They're both PhDs. They followed their passion. And they are both we're very different, but very similar at the same time. I think because we had similar impacts. One of my sister is really trying to make a difference for, again, women leadership, but in a different way through her work around technology that is inclusive and enabling. And my other sister, she is a PhD in math. Very few women in that area. And she left a very comfortable, high-paying job, fluffy job to go into the entrepreneurial journey, which takes a lot of courage.
Takes a lot of bravery, yes.
And then if I can mention a dear, dear friend.
Yes, of course.
Latifa. She also has a daughter. And just to highlight how strong women are, and her daughter was diagnosed with Wilms tumor.
Oh,
and she's a daughter after 16 years. And what I loved about the strength that Latifa showed everyone, she was there for her family. She was there for her daughter. Her daughter now is cancer-free. And
wow.
But the amount of research, organization, a lot of work. This is a very overwhelming process.
Yeah.
And she brought her daughter to life. She gave life twice to her daughter.
Wow. So wow.
She inspires me with her strength.
Yeah.
And she was there for me.
Yeah. Wow.
When she was going through all of this. And I appreciate that she teaches me every day to be authentic, true to myself, to my origin, and to have strength, right?
Wow.
And I don't want to forget my husband, because he always says he can't mention me, but he is amazing.
Yes.
He is an amazing partner, father, who always have these like wise comments that he makes. That also makes me a better leader, better human being. And the US inspires me. I love this country. If I'm not clear, I love the country. We're going through a lot of divisions right now, but the US, it's based on hardworking people that are looking to create a better world. So I love the US. That's the whole country inspired. Across all the colors.
I can appreciate that very much, because you're right. It is the land of opportunity. Very few places in the world will give you the type of opportunity that the US will give you. So I think that's very valid.
It would have been almost impossible for someone to contain me. Like, if that makes sense.
I love it. So I'm going to ask a question that and to me, I just feel like you're so inspiring and you're so powerful. I find it hard to believe that you would ever give your power away. But tell me, as women, I mean, we give our power away all the time, right? We give credit to people who, we should take that credit, or we walk away when somebody criticizes us or puts us down. So can you tell me about a time that you gave your power away, and then another time that you stepped into your power?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like, you have to navigate the biases, right? You cannot just, and this strength didn't come overnight, right? I went through a lot of experiences that gave me a lot of confidence, if that makes sense. I mean, when I was at Athira, a lot of the time I would come up with something and then I would be like, oh, like, good job. Like, I would give it to another, just because I wanted to focus on the team and, and all of that. With the board of directors, I would like praise someone on the team, although, it's my work. It doesn't really impact anyone. During a moment in Athira, as I was considering to build the management team, I remember Tachi Amada. He's a very dear mentor. He passed away last year, which was a very big loss to everyone. I remember going into his office and asking him, hey, Tachi, do you think I'm the right CEO for Athira? Or do we need to find someone else? He's like, I don't know. I need to think about it. After a few weeks, he said, Leen, you are the CEO. I'm confident that you are the right CEO. But we live, unfortunately, in a time where there is, a bias against women. So we need to address that.
Yeah.
I had that relationship that we can have this conversation. I didn't, and at that point, I've been raising money for a while. And he said, I can't be with you in all of the meetings. He was older. He can't much. He's trying to spend more time with his family. He's like, I can be with you with some of the meetings, but you need a person with specific characteristics to, I don't want to mention, it's very clear, I think, that would be with you in the meeting, just to create that connection and closeness to the investors, since they're mostly, coming from a specific background.
Right.
And, I hired for specific, which was very different than any other hires I've done. But now I learned that no, I'm never going to carry weight. I'm never going to hire someone that I'm going to end up doing their job. I'm Propel. I learned so much. But again, it's a learning opportunity. I'm not taking it as a negative thing. I was like, oh my God, if I didn't go through this, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. That I only hire for talent.
Right.
I'm not gonna, Tachi came from a very, very good place. And I know he was, without him, I think he gave me a lot of advice, a lot of wisdom. We had very open conversations. He also has a very strong daughter that he always talked about. But I did that. I don't know if it's a bad thing. Looking back, it's not. I don't regret it, to be honest, because it helps me. But now I don't need it. That's the thing.
Yes, that's
now,
stepping back in your power.
It's not, I don't need it. And I remember telling Rick Kane, he told me he was introducing me as we were starting Propel, different people. And there was this person that he kept insisting on me talking to. I was like, give me the agenda. What do you want me to do with this person? I don't know. I talked to him, but I'm not sure what you want me to. He's like, maybe we can find a way to have him work with us. And I was like, no more hiring a person and carrying dead weight. I said, if you want to hire him and manage him, go ahead. I am not.
Right.
And if you have any other, I talked to him a few times, he's not the right fit. And he's not going to be the person that is going to, even starting a fund, it is starting a fund. It's a lot of work. And I need someone that has the experience. And tenacity. I have amazing advisors. I have amazing advisors, and I handpicked them based on, okay, these people, I worked with them for a while. I know they're going to do the work. They have the experience, and they're going to be engaged. It's not, and no longer using names or pictures for anything. So that was a moment where, and I was worried, is Rick going to feel uncomfortable? He's like, sounds good. Never going to bring it up again. Thank you.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So one last question. What do you wish more people knew?
About me or about?
Just about life. About life. What do you wish more people knew?
I don't know if I wish more people knew. I wish more people acknowledge that in our differences, we are stronger. We are stronger. And that at the end of the day, regardless what you do, regardless where you are in life, regardless of your past or future, we are all humans.
Yes.
Our basic needs are similar. And I've had a lot of people who showed me kindness, support. And this is way more important than anything else. And the second part, for entrepreneurs out there that are raising money, since now I'm on the investor side and I was on the entrepreneur side, when investors say no, know that it's most of the time not about you or about your technology. It's just not the right time.
Yeah.
Try to use it as an opportunity to take advice from people who see a lot of companies to improve your product, improve your company, and propel forward.
I love it. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited. This has been such a great conversation. I think we're going to have to do a follow-up to this because I still have like 100 more questions. I just could talk to you forever. So thank you so much, Leen. You have just been an amazing guest, and I'm so grateful for you, for your tenacity, for your drive. I'm just so grateful. So thank you.
I'm grateful for everything you do as well. Thank you so much, Angela. I really enjoyed this.
Yes, me too. So thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Pretty Powerful Podcast. You can learn all about Leen if you go to prettypowerfulpodcast.com. You can check out her links, and highly encourage you to do so. She's an amazing woman to follow. So thank you, Leen, again for your time today. And I hope everyone has an amazing day.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time. And until then, step into your own power.